With some exciting shots and a decisive break in the final frame, Judd was able to narrowly defeat Neil Robertson to win the English Open final. It wasn't only Judd that seemed to be back on top form. The standard of the entire tournament was incredibly high, with a lot of players producing some of the best shots that we'd seen in some time. In fact, they're going to be some of the toughest shots I've ever tried to recreate, but I'm still going to be looking to play them in the fewest possible attempts and as accurately as possible, which will allow you to vote on your favourite. We saw some excellent shots in this tournament from players like Ronnie O'Sullivan, Mark Selby and Michael Holt. But it is Trump we're going to start with, and his impressive positional shot from the brown. Judd had far too much angle here to hold for the yellow, so had to find a unique way to avoid all the colours and pockets and get the cue ball round the table and back on the yellow. And it was avoiding the pockets in particular that I struggled with. You've got to play this shot with a lot of left-hand side to get the cue ball round the pink and the top pocket. But the left-hand side makes the cue ball break a little bit wider, which is why it kept coming into contact with the jaws. In the end, however, my persistence paid off, which I was happy with because I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to be able to strike the cue ball hard enough to play this shot on my table. Dominic Dale now playing what became a very popular shot choice in the English Open. It's not unusual for players to attempt a speculative pot but mainly focus on screwing the cue ball back into bulk when there's no real safety shot on. The difference in this tournament, however, was simply the number of times that players were able to pull these incredibly difficult shots off. Normally screwing the cue ball back this far would be incredibly tough, but because it's close to the cushion, you can use a small amount of side spin as well that makes the shot a lot easier. But actually potting the balls down the rail is incredibly difficult. Even though I didn't screw the cue ball back the right side of the blue, I still managed to get it fairly close to where Dominic got it, so I was happy enough with the shot. Escaping from snookers is always a challenge, but you could argue that Kyren Wilson gets this one absolutely perfect. With a game that's becoming more and more attacking, it always surprises me how good a professional snooker player's knowledge of the angles actually is. Not only that, being able to roll up to a red on a 4-cushion snooker escape is incredibly impressive. I was playing the shot with a small amount of left-hand side, but not too much, and I was fairly close with my first attempt. However, this was still been a disastrous shot. On my second attempt, I managed to get a lot closer. Overhit it slightly, but still managed to leave it very safe. Before the next shot, I think I just about have room to squeeze Greg from Wednesbury in the United Kingdom on the map, but only if I force it a little bit. It doesn't matter how difficult the shot is. When you're playing Ronnie O'Sullivan, you've got to remember that he's still one of the best single ball potters in the game right now. Ryan Day nearly had him snookered here, but not only could Ronnie see the green, he managed to pot it into the corner pocket.
Oh, well, what can you say about that?
And then win the frame and match from this position. Even though this is an incredibly difficult pot, there's nothing too complicated about this shot. You've just got to pot it at a fairly firm pace. To start off with, I struggled to line it up accurately, but every shot I played was just getting closer and closer until inevitably I got everything lined up just right. Mark Selby now showing us all the perfect way to end a close frame. Needing just the blue to win, Mark was able to take some of the pressure off the shot by stunning the cue ball to the top cushion. This is a great shot under the circumstances and one that I'm never usually too confident with, stunning a long pot with a slight angle. So I was really happy to pot the blue so quickly because it's not necessarily my favourite type of shot. Shaun Murphy's playing the type of shot here that I only actually want to be setting up the once. This really isn't too difficult, but what was noticeable was how aggressively he played it.
Wow, that's how I'm nothing.
Other than being a little bit anxious about setting the balls up again, I was fairly confident I'd be able to get this one first time. I just made sure I had a good look at the angle so I knew exactly where I needed to play the red. And the only other thing I really had to do was screw the cue ball back. I couldn't get the balls to end up in exactly the same place, but I think that's more or less impossible, so I'm happy enough with that one. Straight on the black usually isn't ideal, but Judd Trump finds a unique way to keep the break going from this position. He's able to screw the cue ball off the side cushion with reverse side and just about get into the reds, leaving one onto the middle pocket. You have to get your cue out of the way pretty quickly on this shot, and it didn't start well. The spin slows the cue ball down as it strikes the cushion, so you really have to time this one well to get into the reds at all with any speed. But by playing the black off the far jaw, I was able to widen the angle a little bit, get into the balls at a straighter angle and just about opening them up to leave me in perfect position. It's now the turn of Michael Holt to try to power the cue ball back into bulk. He could only just about see this shot, and there's another red just behind the one he's aiming for, so he has to play this more with side spin rather than screwing the cue ball back. But it still requires an accurate pot.
What a shot. What a shot. Get the cue ball up the table is tremendous.
As it turned out though, this shot requires a little bit more backspin than I first shot. The right hand side simply doesn't do anything unless the cue ball's already moving in the right direction. Once again, this was a very awkward pot, but thankfully I had just enough cue power to screw the cue ball back to where I needed to get it. Unfortunately, however, when I finally did pot the red, I ended up striking the blue, but I didn't think I was ever going to pot this shot again. After taking an early lead, Jimmy came back strongly against Michael Holt until he missed this green that he was less than impressed about.
He's overcut the green, and he is furious.
Our next shot's from Mark Allen, but first we're going to find Zayn in Ali and in the UAE. Here's Mark Allen lining up a delicate snooker. Faced with a tough safety shot against Mark King, he elects just to play a containing safety and try to get the snooker behind the black. The main problem I had with this shot is I was striking the white a lot better and wasn't used to seeing the cue ball run so straight down the table. After I'd convinced myself that I wasn't playing the shot with any side spin whatsoever, I started to get close, but I just had to get the line and the pace right now. I overhit it, but thankfully the hole in the black spot saved me here and I just about got the snooker. Sometimes players use the bump of the middle pocket to help manoeuvre the cue ball round the table. This, however, isn't really one of those times. It's Judd Trump's turn to screw the cue ball back down the end of the table, and the bump of the middle pocket helps it on in that direction. This shot is doubly difficult. Not only is it the hardest to screw back into bulk, it's probably the hardest pot on the list as well. Using backspin and right hand side, you can definitely overplay this and collide with a group of balls, so you've got to control the amount of spin you get on the white perfectly. But with both the pot and safety element of the shot being so difficult, I think it's the most difficult shot on the list. And even if it isn't, it's certainly the shot I had the most trouble with. What made it even worse is if I got it wrong, there was a good chance I would be putting quite a lot of balls back before I could play it again. Finally I'd got it, and I'd just about caught the middle jaw, so I was really happy with this. The three shots that were the most difficult for me to play was third, Judd smashing the cue ball round the table after potting the brown to finish on the yellow. Second, Dominic Dale screwing the cue ball all the way back into baulk from a long way away. But I don't necessarily think this was as difficult as a Judd trump shot, because he had further to screw the cue ball back and he had to control the way he screwed it across the table. But just because it's difficult to play, that doesn't necessarily make it the best shot of the championship. And you can vote for your favourite in the description down below. I can guarantee you every vote will be counted, though I can't guarantee that anybody's going to care. But if you care, or even have a slight interest in seeing recreations of other championships, have a look at these two videos. And remember, don't just watch, play, and make the commitment to becoming a better player by subscribing to the channel and visit the website. See you later.